finding from an Edmunds article. Take it with a grain of salt, basically. So they did make the suspension modifications in 2011, though. I think, though, between the lightning lap, the car and driver lightning lap track times, basically, between the 2008 and the 2011 ISFs, there's a solid 4-second lap time difference when car and driver took them out and beat the hell out of them, basically, which is extremely significant, especially if you drive on the track. Now, I don't think personally, and I'm not just saying this because I drive a 2010, I still think a majority of that improvement on the track is not the suspension modifications. I think most of that was for compliance and just ride comfort. I think the steering, in 2011 they did also do a steering ECU modification. That could be 2012, I'm not 100% sure, but I know they did that one of those 2 years. That's also just to kind of stiffen up the steering a bit. The steering on the ISF, if you have one of the earlier model years, there's a slight kind of, we'll call it maybe 3/4 of an inch kind of dead center slight, where you just feel like you want it a little bit tighter right off center, basically. So apparently they addressed that with the newer steering ECU. So, I mean, if you had the money to kind of do the 11 or the 10 and you want all the bells and whistles and every little modern tweak, the 11's always going to be the best, especially if you don't mind the dash layout. A lot of guys actually like it. I personally didn't want it personally, but again, to each his own. But the 11 is slightly more fine-tuned, basically, here. Now, in the 2012 model year, yeah, the main real difference, basically, out there, you guys, just slightly wider wheels. Lexus went really narrow on these cars. I can't believe we're pushing I believe it's 3,680 pound, sedan, basically, and they're running 225s in the front, 255s in the rear. That's kind of ridiculous, man. So it brings us back to another issue with the car that you will feel right out of the box, especially when you pick up the car and you want to go out and fuck around with it a little bit. You're going to absolutely run into some solid understeer, especially at the limit. It was weird. I went from an LS 460 on 22-inch wheels, but I was running a 255 in the front and 295 in the back, and I was on Michelin Super Sports. I can't believe I spent $2,000 on tires. Anyways, so the car's still stuck. Obviously, for a car that big, it would roll like a pig or in a boat, but it's still stuck. So it was funny. One night, right after I picked up the ISF, I went out to drive it. I think I went to go drop somebody off at the airport, and I'm taking the on-ramp like crazy and just pushing it, and the fucking thing is starting to understeer. I literally went from the right lane to the left lane. I mean, I left that corner a little upset at the car, to be honest. I was kind of shocked. I'm like, how the fuck did my LS 460 handle this turn better than the ISF would? That's kind of strange. Now, again, there's no roll, and everything feels super tight and direct, but the front tires are starting to let go. So, anyways, yeah, again, another common mod with this car is just upgrading to a 245 in the front and 275 in the back. You can do that with even the earlier model years. Anyway, so again, the 2012 got a wider wheels. Okay, now how much wider? It's only ½ an inch, but that ½ an inch opens up kind of different sizes slightly for those owners. So, if you do have a 2012 and you get the wider wheels, which are in slightly higher demand for some of the owners who want the pure OEM look, basically, you can pick one of those up. Have the slightly wider wheels, and again, in terms of the styling, it's all subjective, but they come with the wider wheels, so you can upgrade to, I think, a 255, and I want to say a 285 probably in the back, something like that, safely. I personally don't like the upsizing on the stock wheels. It didn't feel good to me at all. Feels very wishy-washy. To each his own, though. I like kind of the direct feeling of the stock or fit, or just that slight stretch, you know what I mean? You don't want that beefy, a beefy sidewall. You don't want the thing sticking off to the side. Anyways, to each his own. You can feel that out. There's lots of stuff on Club Lexus, actually, which is an excellent forum if you guys are looking to buy an ISF, or if you're a fan of the ISF and don't know much about it. Basically, that's a great place to find out information, is the ISF forum on Club Lexus. Now, things to watch for in terms of just owning the car, basically, or if you're going to pick one up and you're shopping for it, again, so more in terms of the buyer guide, basically. The valley plate leak, we've mentioned that before. A main thing with the second generation IS cars, and it is kind of a nuisance for owners, basically, but thank God it is resolvable without spending too much money, basically, is the inner tire wear that comes with the second generation ISs. Now, we're talking 250, 350 ISF. It doesn't make a difference. They all do it. I would assume that the ISF might be a little bit worse because the motor's so big and it's heavier, basically. But anyways, it has what we call a dynamic toe problem. So when you hit the brakes, the front tires toe in, and then you get tire wear, basically. Everything tends to eat up the inner tire wall. It actually might be toe out if it's going to be the inner tire wall. I believe so. I'm not sure, but there's a toe issue. Anyways, the tires basically don't remain straight under load when you're braking heavily, or even just mildly. Tires deflect, you get inner tire wear, the tires go really quickly, and it pisses owners off, especially when you own a car like this. And you put nice tires on it. That's kind of upsetting. You know, these tires add up basically, and it gets annoying, especially when you're getting, like, let's say a third or less of the tire life of the, you know, the tires. So thankfully, the aftermarket does supply upper control arm bushings, or control arm bushings, for the ISF 350, and I believe the 250 as well, that are stiffer. It's a higher durometer reading basically, so once you hit the brakes, you don't get that tire deflection. Everything stays straight, and you basically don't wear out the tires. So that's something to watch out for. So you might want to look on, if you get a chance, look into the car. So a lot of owners are starting to address the issue now that the aftermarket is supplying parts for that kind of stuff, or bushings. So you might want to lift the thing up, or just look underneath it, basically see if the bushings right behind the front tires have been replaced, or if they look, you know, aftermarket. They might be orange or blue or purple. That's what the aftermarket companies are supplying right now. Another common issue with this car, engine ticking. Okay, now these cars do come with direct injection, as well as port injection, I believe. But the direct injection it's a bitch. It's loud. I've had a GS 350 in the past. I have an LS 460 before the ISF, and now the ISF. Every single one of them has this really annoying ticking, especially if you pull up next to a wall, that kind of a thing. Especially, let's say you're headed out and you're trying to get something to eat. You go to a drive-through. It's hilarious. You pull right next to the wall and you're like, what the fuck? It's just like tick, 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 tick. In the end, it's normal. Okay, it comes with the direct injection. Now, a secondary portion of that, I think, is just the ISF. ISF has like a design, call it quirk. It's not an issue. They just make that ticking noise. It's kind of annoying, but they do it. We've had guys do, you know, the engine, the valve inspections, and the, you know, readjustments and that kind of stuff. You fuck with the octane, it doesn't make a difference. They just tick. So don't lose your mind if you find one that's ticking. It's not the end of the world basically here. Now the engine ticking, another portion of that too is, now we're finding as some of the cars are aging, that some of the cars are having the header issues basically. The OEM headers are starting to crack right at the base of the flange. So what the owners are finding is when they start the car up in the morning, especially when the car is real cold, you get this really loud ticking for probably about a minute, maybe 30 seconds, and then it just kind of slowly just dissipates and goes away. It fades. That's it. So you want to watch for that, especially if you're looking for an 08, 09, or even 2010 that's higher mileage, whatever it is. If it's higher mileage, you need to watch for that, because that'd be a pain in the ass, and that is an expensive fix to have that repaired. So again, something to watch for, you guys. The next thing I wanted to bring up basically is going to be the belt slip noise, and I definitely have this issue. What a lot of owners are finding, again, not everybody, but again, something to watch for. When you're on the test drive, don't pussyfoot. You know, beat the thing up, feel it out a little bit, run it to red line. So what a lot of owners are finding, including myself, and it doesn't look like there's a solid fix or an easier fix, is we're getting a loud belt slip noise at red line. Okay, so I mean, real simple. Put the tech in the car next to you, put the thing in first gear, hit sport mode, and just floor it. Once it gets to 6,000, just shift it basically. You'll get a loud belt slip noise. It's not your transmission blowing. It's nothing like that basically, which it tripped me the hell out when I first heard mine. It was right after I bought it too, and I was freaking out. But in the end, it seems like it's one of the more common issues with the car basically. And what we're finding is a lot of guys, including myself, have replaced the drive pulley and the drive belt. To no avail. Not necessarily no avail initially. It does work initially to get rid of the noise, but afterward, for me, it took maybe 6 to 8 weeks. It just came back. Now, we have had another owner that I've spoken to who had his AC compressor blow up on the track day, and when it went out and they went ahead and replaced it, it ended up getting rid of the noise for him. So I mentioned to and I'm working with Lexus right now to try and get mine addressed, but I've mentioned to them that I replaced, because the tech, when I spoke to him, mentioned that it's either the drive belt and pulley or it's the AC. Now, I told him, well, I just replaced the drive belt and the pulley like 2 years ago, and the noise came back within 6-7 weeks. So, you know, that kind of, I don't know necessarily that kind of takes it off the table, but, you know, that kind of points maybe towards the AC. So next time I take it in, I'm going to try and mention that to them, basically see if we can get that addressed. But in my opinion, you guys, it's pointing towards the AC compressor. So if you have that issue, You know what I mean? The belt obviously and the pulley is cheap as hell, but you might need to replace the belt or the AC if it starts to bother you. It doesn't affect performance, it doesn't affect track driving, it doesn't affect drivability or safety or anything like that. It's just a loud freaking belt noise. Some of the guys have mentioned on the forum that they thought it was actually the rear tire slipping. And don't flatter yourselves, you guys. It's the belt, man. It sounds like it's from the front, it's not from the back. So in the end, if you want to get that addressed, it's probably the AC, in my opinion. And I've done probably a little bit more homework into this than most people, and I've nagged my service advisor probably than most people would probably go after him for this. I have mentioned the understeer, and again, we've mentioned that, and people upsizing to the 245 35. That's something you might want to look into. Or if you're looking for an ISF, you might find that when you look at them, they already have them on there. So if it's a 225, I believe 4019, that's standard. If you're looking at a 245 35, then you've had the owner previous to you who's already done the upgrading, basically, which is kind of cool. Now, in terms on it's in ownership of the car, my own personal opinion on ownership, I love this car, you guys. I've had this car now for 3 years. I tend to get bored after owning my cars for about 2 or 3 years, even after modding them. Excuse me. So I fall in love with them, but you know, not forever, basically. Now, this is the only car I've ever had in my life where I've owned over 3 years, and I'm not thinking about owning it. Oh, excuse me, getting rid of it. There's nothing else on the market right now that I'd rather own than this car. I go look at some of the F80 M3s, beautiful cars, they fly, great tunability. I don't like the reliability personally, you guys. It's just it's a personal